Greetings, my friends, and welcome to episode number 1 of a series titled, Who is the Antichrist? In this series, I will address a number of questions and topics related to the person known as the Antichrist. In this first episode, I'll introduce you to the Greek word from which we get the English term Antichrist. If you have any familiarity with the Bible, when you hear the term Antichrist, your thoughts probably jump immediately to the last book of the Bible, the book known as Revelation. There are good reasons for that. However, the term Antichrist doesn't actually appear in that book at all. In fact, it only appears in 2 short letters within the New Testament. Both of these letters were written by the Apostle John. We call them 1 John and 2 John. The Greek word from which we get the English term Antichrist is Antichristos. The English word Antichrist is therefore not a translation, but rather a transliteration. The word Antichristos is never found in Greek literature before John's time. It seems that John invented this word and gave it his own definition. Before we consider the Greek word itself, let's take a look at 2 verses within John's first letter where he gives us his definition. First, we have verse 22 in chapter 2 of 1 John. Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. And next we have verse 3 in chapter 4. Every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. When we examine these verses in detail, 2 particular ideas come to the fore. Here's the first idea. The term Antichrist can be used in a general sense to describe anyone who denies that Jesus of Nazareth is God incarnate. The Bible teaches that the person whom we call Jesus is the second person of the divine Trinity, who added to himself a human nature without surrendering his divine nature. We call that event the Incarnation. Jesus is therefore the one true God-man. Listen again to the first part of chapter 4, verse 3. Every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God, and this is the spirit of the Antichrist. Notice that John uses the term spirit here to refer to any person, human or angelic, who denies the truth of the Incarnation. So the first idea regarding the term Antichrist is that it can be used in a general sense to describe anyone who denies the deity of Jesus. Listen again now to verse 22 from chapter 2, where John expresses the same idea in different words. Who is a liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son. When John affirms that, quote, Jesus is the Christ, unquote, he is affirming that Jesus is the promised divine Messiah of Old Testament prophecy. When John states that, quote, he is Antichrist who denies the Father and the Son, unquote, he is proclaiming the fact that just as the Father is divine, so is Jesus. And therefore, anyone who denies the deity of Jesus is an Antichrist in the general sense of the word. That leads us to our second idea. The term Antichrist can also be used to refer to a specific person who will come in the future. Listen again to chapter 4, verse 3, and pay attention to the little word the, T-H-E. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming. Most English Bibles capitalize the word Antichrist here to emphasize the fact that John is referring to a particular individual. This is indeed helpful, but it is important to remember that in the Greek New Testament no such capitalization is found. What makes it clear that John is referring to a specific individual is the fact that he adds the specifying article, the, T-H-E, in the phrase, the Antichrist. Pulling these two ideas together, it's clear that John uses the term Antichrist in both a general and a specific way. Any person who denies the deity of Christ is an Antichrist. In that general sense, I was an Antichrist before I became a Christian because I refused to recognize the deity of Jesus. But when John refers to the Antichrist, he has a particular person in mind. This particular person, when he appears in our world, will no doubt deny the deity of Jesus. But he will be much more than a denier of Christ's deity. In fact, as we will see in our next episode, the capital A Antichrist, as I will sometimes call him, will offer himself as a substitute for Jesus. In our next episode, we will take a closer look at the Greek term Antichristos. We will examine the two parts from which John created this word. We will discover why John invented this word, and we will begin to see how this word links conceptually to many other terms in the Bible that identify the same mysterious individual of prophecy. Terms like the man of sin and the beast from the sea. I hope to see you in episode number 2 of our series, Who is the Antichrist? Until then, grace and peace to you.